Hello, welcome. You're watching Global Lens from the CNBC-TV18 Prime Ionic Wealth Ancient World studio. With me, Parikshit Luthra. To boost the competitiveness of Indian exporters and MSMEs, the government has approved two major initiatives worth 45,000 crore rupees. This comes as India and the US are believed to be in the final stages of concluding a trade deal. Let's break down the two schemes. First, the Export Promotion Mission focused particularly on MSMEs. First-time exporters, labor-intensive sectors. The mission will operate through two integrated sub-schemes, Niryat Protsahan, which offers financial support through interest subvention, export factoring and collateral guarantees, and Niryat Disha, which focuses on non-financial enablers like export quality improvement, compliance assistance, and international branding. The mission carries an outlay of 25,060 crore rupees over 4 years, starting FY26. Meanwhile, the government also approved the credit guarantee scheme for exporters, providing 20,000 crore rupees in collateral-free credit support with 100% credit guarantee coverage by the National Credit Guarantee Trustee Company. But the quick question remains, how will these measures help Indian exporters and MSMEs navigate volatile global markets? Joining us on the show are Jayant Dasgupta, former Indian ambassador to the WTO, Ajay Sahai, Director General and CEO of the Federation of Indian Export Organizations. Jayant Dasgupta, let me begin by asking you, was this scheme absolutely essential in the current geopolitical environment where we are yet to reach a deal with the US? And in the event there is no deal, the tariffs on India will be 50%. So do you feel that these schemes were the need of the hour?
Absolutely. I think these schemes, irrespective of whether and when we reach an agreement with the US, these schemes are extremely going to be extremely useful for the exporters for two simple reasons. One is that we need to bring down the transaction costs. And one of the factors which weighs on the minds of exporters is that they have to provide collateral in order to get credit guarantees. And that itself costs money. So in terms of sheer, I think, economics, it would, account for a few percentage points or less in terms of the transaction costs. The second aspect is, and I must say that in many developed countries, including the US, credit guarantee schemes are available to almost all exporters. And of course, they do check the track record, etc., which I'm sure in the case of India also, there would be some kind of a preliminary check, but it would be extremely useful. The second aspect is about quality improvement in helping the exporters improve their qualities, produce a better product, Niryat Protsahan and Niryat Disha. These two sub-schemes under the Export Promotion Mission, I think they are basically meant to penetrate new markets and to provide a kind of a footing for our exporters to compensate for the loss of the US market to a certain extent. But nevertheless, these would be helpful in diversifying our export destinations as well as our export basket and improving the quality
Right.
of the export product.
Right. Ajay Sahai, does this help small exporters, MSMEs, in protecting themselves in a global environment? Does this provide the necessary cushion? And in terms of opening up new routes or entering global markets apart from US, is that going to be an easy task?
In fact, if you look into the export promotion mission, it was announced when we were not discussing about the tariffs. So probably the aim of the scheme is to increase the cash flow to the export sector and look into the competitiveness of exports in terms of the target which we are looking for 2030. Though, of course, its relevance has increased when we are looking into the tariff and looking into the issue of diversification. For me, the scheme will be providing much needed competitiveness to Indian exports because when you are looking into the cost of credits, we are outpriced by our global competitor, particularly in Southeast Asian countries. To that extent, it will be extremely helpful. The government is also looking into diversifying India's export, and therefore, any support for the market access will come quite handy. We are looking into MAI scheme. We are also looking into setting up of the warehouses abroad. Probably when we are looking into difficult countries, it makes sense to warehouse the goods in those countries so that they can be dispatched as and when the demand from the buyers comes. We are also looking into providing support to the e-commerce, which is the thrust sectors of India's export. We are looking towards taking it to 200 to 250 billion dollar by 2030. So in all, I think it will help the Indian exports in medium to long term. While, of course, at this point of time, when we are looking into huge headwinds in exports, it will come quite handy. But probably when the scheme is there for 4 years, exporter and export organization can plan well in advance to take the complete advantage of that.
All right. So let me go back to Ambassador Dasgupta. Ambassador Dasgupta, what does this indicate to us about the ongoing negotiations with the United States? The reason why I ask is because the export promotion mission was on the table for quite some time. It has been in discussion. Donald Trump has said that he will soon sign a trade deal with India that will bring tariffs down. Is there somehow a feeling that whether or not we have a deal, probably the tariffs will still be in the range of 15 to 20%, and therefore, somewhere our exporters need incentives and their financial support?
I think that these two schemes, they are not there just for the US. And you are absolutely right, Parikshitji, that India will not sign this deal, which President Trump has been promising for the past 5, 6 months, saying that it is just around the corner. I hope it is. But, if it is not less than 19, it doesn't really make sense for India after having already suffered unnecessarily at the hands of the US. So the landing zone has to be between, let's say, 15 and 18 or something. And that would be the tariff. But even then, Vietnam and Bangladesh and the other Southeast Asian countries and some from the other parts of the world, they all have comparable tariffs, 19%, 20%, etc. So that really will not be much of an advantage. 2-3% would be there. Now, the problem is that if the other countries are offering incentives by way of credit guarantees, and as Dr. Sahai mentioned, it has a cost. And if the costs are getting compensated in other geographies, and India is not doing it, it is required. So whether it is the US or any other part of the world, it is required in any case. So that is one thing. The second point is, even if we, let's say, don't get into an agreement with the US over the next 2-3 days, let's say, or a few weeks, we have to explore, there is no alternative but to diversify our export basket. We can't remain totally dependent on the US for textiles and clothing, for instance. 28% of our textiles and clothing goes to the US. Now, that kind of over-dependence has to be reduced. So we have to look for other markets.
Okay. Let me go back to Mr. Sahai. Mr. Sahai, will these schemes, the export promotion mission, the credit guarantee scheme, help our exporters who had been traditionally exporting to the US market? We've seen exports to US coming under strain because it's no longer cost competitive. Will this be enough?
No, I won't say it will be enough and it will offset the tariff disadvantage. Please bear in mind that roughly 50% of India's export to the US is still not impacted. 50% is impacted, but somehow with the deep discount offered by the Indian exporters, we have not been hit that badly. And they are hoping that very soon the deal will be through and they don't want to lose the customer at this point of time. But to them also, these kinds of support will definitely be quite helpful, more so for the exporters who are looking into the new markets. And probably if we leverage the FTA and use these schemes judiciously, we will be able to gain some breakthrough into those markets. I think one of the positive fallout of the tariff war has been that now exporters are desperately looking for a market other than the US, which of course is a very high market and very large market with a lot of profits moving to the US. But I
Mr.
think that's
Sai?
a lesson has been learned. Probably they will be looking into the other alternatives as well.
Right. One quick question to both of you. What is the next big reform that India needs which could help us offset the impact of tariffs in the long term?
Personally,
Both to
feel
both
that
our guests. Ajay
probably
Sahai, I'll start with you.
I think we are not doing well in the labor-intensive sectors of export and technology and knowledge-driven sectors of export. We are doing extremely well. Skilling will be the key to the Indian exports. Wage arbitrage no longer remains with India unless we focus on skilling and impart the skilling in diverse sectors, not only in textile and footwear, but also in gems and jewelry, sports goods, and other sector. It will be very, very difficult for us to provide support to the labor-intensive sector. Are extremely important for creation of jobs into the country.
All right. Yeah, Mr. Dasgupta, very quickly.
Well, I agree with Dr. Sahai that skilling is one very important component. But along with that, I think we have to simplify the procedures and bring down the transaction costs, whether they are, finance-related costs or transportation costs, logistics costs. We have to bring it down and to comparable levels in the West and in competitors like China, Vietnam, etc. Only then we will be able to compete on a level playing field.
All right. Thank you very much, Ambassador Dasgupta and Ajay Sahai for joining us on the program. Let's move on. The chairman of the US-India Strategic Partnership Forum, John Chambers, says businesses do not see Trump's tariffs affecting the long-term bilateral relationship with India. Speaking at a CNBC-TV18 roundtable, Chambers said no CEO is going to bet against India and will see the fastest GDP growth in the world. US ISPF CEO Mukesh Aghi said that the relationship between both nations is much broader and a trade deal alone will not define it.
You now see our constituency, and we have 450 members at U.S.-India Strategic Partnership Forum. When Mukesh polls the group, they're all in and they're all investing in the future. So they see this as a short-term bump. They don't view it as a way that's going to disrupt our long-term relationships, and I absolutely agree with that. So I'm very optimistic on what we're going to see between the U.S. and India, and more importantly, I'm very optimistic India will become the #1 GDP country in the world, which nobody would have dreamed of 4 or 5 years ago.
A deal does not define the relationship between the two countries. The relationship is much deeper, broader. It's on technology partnership, it's on defense partnership. In fact, US just signed a 10-year defense pact itself. It's on students. It's people to people. We have around 5 million Indian Americans driving the relationship. So I think we should not just stay focused on the deal, if it's happening, not happening. Yes, it does have impact on 50% tariff on a lot of India's export. But what we are finding is those businesses are finding ways to find a solution to the exports itself.
And coming up, Pakistan's Senate has passed the 27th Constitutional Amendment Bill, which aims to grant sweeping powers to the military leadership. We decode the impact of this with Anju Gupta, a strategic affairs expert, on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Global Lens. Pakistan's President Asif Ali Zardari has given his assent for the 27th Constitutional Amendment Bill after both houses passed it. The controversial bill that aims to bring sweeping changes to the country's balance of power was cleared despite the opposition's protest. Let's decode the amendment. It abolishes the existing post of Chairman and Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee and creates a new constitutionally backed position of the Chief of Defence Forces. This post will be held by the country's Army Chief, that is Field Marshal Asim Munir. This means he will be in charge of the Army, Navy and Air Force. Not just that, the amendment grants lifetime immunity to 5-star ranks such as Field Marshal, meaning Asim Munir cannot be easily removed or criminally prosecuted even after retirement. The bill also enables the creation of another post, the Commander of the National Strategic Command. This person will be appointed from within the army and in consultation with Asim Munir, and his role will be to oversee Pakistan's nuclear command structure. While Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif hailed the bill's passage as a demonstration of national unity, critics warned that it hands unprecedented power to Asim Munir. General Asim Munir became Army Chief in November 2022, and he was promoted to Field Marshal shortly after the India-Pakistan conflict this year. He's only the second military officer in the country's history to be elevated to this rank. To discuss the implications of this bill, joining us now is strategic affairs expert Anju Gupta. Ms. Gupta, thank you very much for joining us on Global Lens. What kind of authority does the 27th Amendment give to General Munir?
Good evening, Parikshit. Thanks for having me on the show. As you've just said, that this amendment abolishes the post of chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is normally a 4-star general above the service chiefs. So that post goes in, and instead they create a post called Chief of Defense Forces. This has never been there. And this person will hold concurrent post of Chief of Army Staff, or the other way around, the Chief of Army Staff will hold this post forever, as per the constitutions, which means that the Army now has constitutional superiority over or operational command of the Navy and the Air Force. And we did see that there were some differences, some competition of the Army with the Navy and the Air Force during Operation Sindoor, when we had that problem. So I think that kind of settles it forever, at least till this amendment goes. Second, 5-star Asim Munir became 5-star general because which was kind of a ceremonial thing. It didn't have any constitutional sanctity, so to say. But now there is a constitutional sanctity to 5-star general, and he will have lifelong immunity against prosecution. He'll retain the rank, he'll retain the perks, and he'll retain the uniform. This is something I don't think it has happened anywhere in the world, but this is Pakistan. More importantly, the new post of commander of National Strategic Command, which is being created, will oversee nuclear command structure, and this head will always come from the Army, which is a source of great worry. And he will be appointed in consultation with the Chief of Army Staff, or the CDF as you call it. So these are sweeping changes to the hierarchy of armed forces amongst themselves, and also vis-a-vis the civilian authorities in Pakistan.
Right. I'd also like to ask you, ma'am, could this be a precursor to him, Asim Munir, taking over the reins of the Pakistani government?
I think he doesn't need to take over the Pakistani government. What they have done is the constitutional re-engineering, if you like to call it so. So instead of army coup, which they haven't effected since 2008, I think the last dictator, as they call it, was Musharraf, and taking over power from civilian authority always created problem with the West, with international organizations, that democracy suspended, etc., etc. So now what they have done is very cleverly, they have done constitutional re-engineering, and he holds the de facto power. He and the top army brass in Pakistan.
Right. Why do you think the Pakistani army, the armed forces, and the government felt the need to give these wide-ranging, vast powers to General Munir?
I don't think they felt the need. I think we are seeing the weakest government in decades in Pakistan. This government is the weakest ever, and I think it is because of the kind of compromises they made to get their share of the pie in the power, of the power in Pakistan. We've seen the kind of maneuvering that took place with Zardari becoming the president, etc., etc. Let's not get into this. So this is the weakest government that the army is dealing with. So here is an opportunity. There is no challenge from anybody except from Imran Khan, who's in jail for more than 2 years. And so it's an opportunity. There is a root constitutional amendment for which the polity was willing to oblige in terms of a constitutional amendment. And most importantly, they have the army per se, or Munir per se, has the support of the US and Saudi Arabia. Let's not forget it. I think so everything from their point of view seems to be, falling in place to have kind of done this constitutional re-engineering.
Absolutely. Now, what do you think these expanded powers could allow General Munir to do militarily, for example, with regard to India, especially after Operation Sindoor, as his role is getting bigger?
So you've asked me two questions, but I'll try and couple the answer. One, he gets a seat at the high table, so he's the go-to person now. Anything internal, anything external. General Munir is the go-to person now, or the army, so to say. There is no accountability of the kind of dire situation Pakistan has been facing for many years now, where army, paramilitary, and policemen have been killed hundreds, in hundreds, and there is no accountability. Now, with this kind of a consolidation of power, which is constitutional dictatorship, so to say, there'll be no questions asked. So the situation can become worse and there'll be no question asked. So this is the kind of power now he's going to have where nobody will be able to question him or the army. He can send troops to Gaza. He can send troops to Saudi Arabia. Nobody can ask questions. And more importantly, Pakistan has extended its nuclear umbrella to Saudi Arabia. Let's not forget it. So that this consolidation of power will come in very handy, and that is why I think the support of external actors at this point in time is, I think, godsend for them. And shall I answer
Right.
the question about India? Well, for India, the mask is off.
Absolutely.
The power was always with the army. Now they have, I think, the most constitutionally undemocratic democracy in Pakistan. Munir's hate speeches towards India, I think, is an indication that he's very hawkish on India. He's also very hawkish on Afghanistan. So my sense is that the military approach to security, which Pakistan is taking under his supervision, is going to be strengthened. But it'll be counterproductive for Pakistan, but nevertheless, region will bleed. That's my sense. I hope not, but that's how it looks to me currently.
Okay. All right, ma'am. I'd like to ask you the last question about the Red Fort metro station blast that we saw. It is being investigated as a terror attack. We've not jumped to any conclusions or accused any country for the moment, but what are the lessons for the future?
Very quickly, I would say three lessons. One is that there is definitely a need to make our counterterrorism apparatus more robust. And only the social media control operations will not suffice. I think hard CT work, which is very laborious, will have to be augmented. And I'm very sure that this is what government must be doing. This is what all the governments, state governments also have to do, apart from agencies. Second, I think we need better policing. And we saw in this particular, case, how police in Srinagar were alarmed by, the Jaish-e-Mohammed posters, and they could actually identify 3 young boys who were stone pelters. And they led them to this person who was an ex-Jaish cadre. And that is how they could actually get the whole, the entire network. It's a very important lesson in urban policing. Third, I think we really need counter-radicalization, a very solid counter-radicalization program, online as well as offline, and at the same time restraining hate speeches and rabble-rousing. By rabble-rousing and hate
Right.
speeches, counter-radicalization cannot be achieved for a country like us, which is very diverse. So these are some of the thoughts that I have about what we really have to do, apart from, I'm sure, many other things.
All right.
Thank you.
So much, Ms. Gupta, for joining us in the program, speaking about the elevation of Asim Munir, the kind of powers that the 27th Amendment in Pakistan is going to give to him, and also the long-term ramifications of the Red Fort metro station explosion that we've seen. Let's move on and look at some other global headlines. We're tracking U.S. President Donald Trump has signed the federal funding bill, bringing an end to the country's longest government shutdown. The 43-day shutdown had brought to a grinding halt essential government services and disrupted air travel. Around 670,000 civil servants were furloughed during this period. The bill, which approves federal funding till January next year, was approved by the Republican-controlled House of Representatives. Earlier, half a dozen lawmakers from the Democratic Party had backed the bill in the Senate. Israel carried out air attacks on Gaza's northern city of Beit Lahia, eastern areas of Gaza City and the southern city of Khan Yunis. According to reports, artillery shelling was also observed. Gaza's health ministry said that Israel has killed at least 245 Palestinians, wounded 627 in the enclave since the ceasefire came into force on October 10th. Bangladesh's foreign ministry has summoned India's Deputy High Commissioner in Dhaka, expressing serious concern over deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's interview with Indian media. Hasina, who faces multiple cases in Bangladesh after being ousted last year following student-led protests, recently told the Indian Express that she wishes to return home, but only if free, fair and participatory elections are held. The Indian diplomat was asked to convey Dhaka's request to New Delhi to immediately discontinue Hasina's media access. Disney's quarterly revenues came in flat at just over $22 billion, falling short of expectations. Operating income declined as its TV networks and movie business weakened year on year. However, parks and streaming divisions, seen as key growth drivers, posted solid gains this quarter. Singapore Airlines reported an 82% drop in second quarter earnings, missing estimates as losses from its Air India stake and lower interest income dragged results. Revenue came in at $3.76 billion versus $3.79 billion, while net profit fell to $39 million, well before forecast of $139 million. The airline said a $224 million loss from its Air India investment and lower interest income weighed heavily on performance. Singapore Airlines holds a 25% stake in Air India following its 2024 merger with Vistara, co-owned with Tata Sons. Actor Leonardo DiCaprio, environmental conservationists and representatives of indigenous communities gathered at the U.S. Capitol to pay a heartfelt tribute to the celebrated primatologist Jane Goodall. Speaking at the service, DiCaprio said, and I quote, "May we all honor her by carrying forward that same fierce belief that we can do better, that we must do better, and that we have a responsibility to protect this beautiful natural world we all share." End of quote. That's a wrap on another edition of Global Lens. Goodbye and many thanks for watching.